Today, we are reflecting about another hidden but great and inspiring woman in Old Testament, Shunammite woman. An interesting and amazing woman. Who is this woman? Why is this woman so great? How blessed our life is because we have such women in our scriptures and society. We will be reflecting about her and the lessons we learn from her life in 3 parts. First part of the Shunamite woman. We read in the second book of Kings, chapter 4, 8 to 17, speaks about the first part of the life of Shunammite woman. Shunam is a town at the foot of Mount Carmel, where Elisha, the successor of Elijah, was living. Whenever he goes down, he had to pass through the Shunem town, some 20 kilometers away from Mount Carmel. One day, Elisha went to Shunem, and a woman of rank and a rich woman invited him to eat. Afterwards, whenever he went to the town, he would break his journey and go to her house to eat, as we read in 2nd book of Kings, chapter 4, verse 8. She is mentioned as a prominent and a woman of rank living in the same town, but her name is not given in the Bible like many other women. About her, there is a world of information given in chapters 4 and 8 of 2nd book of Kings, but no name is given. It's very surprising to know that her name is not given like many other women in the Bible, like a Canaanite woman, Samaritan woman, widow of Nain, adulterous woman, a sinful woman in Luke chapter 7, etc. But we can learn so many lessons from the life of Shunammite woman. Some people do the ministries behind the screen and we don't notice them. The first characteristic of this woman, she said to her husband, as we read in 2nd book of Kings chapter 4, 9 to 10, she said to her husband, "Look, this man who is constantly and regularly passing our way is a holy man of God. Let us prepare a room, and whenever he comes to us, he can rest there." Who initiates the topic first? It is not a man, but a woman. This woman was a woman with heart and a woman with generosity. Generosity was the first characteristic of this Shunammite woman. She is not only rich, but also a noble and generous woman, and she recognized Elijah as a holy man of God. The second characteristic, she is a woman of sensitivity, a woman of perception, and also a woman of compassion. She has perception, and perception determines action, and action results in either a reaction or response. How you perceive will determine how you are going to react or respond. How do you perceive others? Or how do you see an event is very important. 3 men passed by in the Good Samaritan story, but the 2 saw and passed by. Only one saw differently and acted sensibly. If you read Luke Gospel chapter 10, 31, priest saw and passed by. 32, the Levite saw and passed by. 33, Good Samaritan. He saw and he got compassion and he did something. Perception is powerful. Two people can perceive the same event in two ways. In one of his interviews, Pope Francis shared this small event about an Argentinian single mother with a daughter. When she asked her parish priest to baptize her 5-year-old daughter, she was refused. The priest said, "You are a single mother. I cannot baptize your 5-year-old daughter." She expressed her pain and disappointment to Holy Father Pope Francis in a letter. When Pope Francis heard this news, he saw the same event differently. He saw the same event differently. He wrote to the parish priest saying, "Don't institute 8th sacrament and don't treat women like you are a custom officer." Pope asked him, "What's wrong with the child? That you refuse baptism? Or what's wrong with the mother to refuse baptism? She conceived the child because of some man. She could have aborted the baby in the womb, or after she gave birth to the baby, she could have killed the baby. Knowing the humiliation to bring up a girl baby without a father, knowing the humiliation, courageously she brought up the girl. And was this not enough to baptize her daughter?" Holy Father perceived the pain of that single mother differently. Check your perception every time. How do you look at the other person or the event? Change your perception. The Shunamite woman perceived and understood Elisha as the man of God. She could perceive the need of that holy man and she decides to do something. Perception and sensitivity are important virtues resulted in positive action. The third characteristic of this woman, she is hospitable. Build a room and put there for him a bed, table, chair, and light to make his life comfortable. If you deprive yourself for the hungry and satisfy the needs of the afflicted, your light will shine in the darkness, and your darkest hour will be like noon, says Isaiah chapter 58 verse 10. And we read in Romans 12:13, share with others who are in need. Look for the opportunities to be hospitable. Be caring and sensible. As the letter to Hebrews chapter 13 verse 2 says, remember always to welcome strangers. Show hospitality to orphans, widows, and strangers. Bible repeats in various books. Show hospitality to orphans, widows, and strangers. In Matthew chapter 25 verse 31 and 40, Jesus identifies himself with those who showed compassion and those who practiced hospitality. If some hungry person wants food, or if money is needed to study, this is the mission of the religious and rich peoples, to share with others who are in need and to respond to their needs without expecting anything in return. This is what exactly the Shunamite woman is doing. She gives him all basic amenities. Whatever she does to him is not going to bring any prosperity in her life. Every time when you worship God, never think what you will get in return from Him. We worship Him because He deserves our worship. I love to go to Him, and it is the sign of my intimacy with Him and my personal relationship with Him. Sometimes I sit before and tell Him, I don't need to ask you anything today. I just want to sit before you. I'm not going to make any request today. I just want to sit in silence and I want to enjoy your presence. Sometimes we need to do that without asking this or that. Why do we do what we do? Or how what we do is more important. Why do you help others? What is your purpose? Jesus could not do some miracles in his hometown because of their unbelief. Their perception is that Jesus is known to them. After all, is he not the son of carpenter? Don't we know his mother Mary? Their perception about Jesus is negative. She is a rich woman and her husband is a bit old. She is much younger to him and there are only 2 members living in this house. This home is a home known for hospitality. She persuaded him to come to their house. She invited him whenever he was passing by. No problem for money, and she also had generosity and sensitivity to host a holy man. It is not because of donkey, but only when Jesus sits on the donkey becomes popular. Without Jesus, the donkey has no respect. Keep Jesus in your life and don't allow anything to come in between you and Jesus. Just because others are praising us, we are not great. All praise belongs to God. May God be glorified. 4th characteristic. She is an honorable woman. Do you hear how she is speaking to her husband? She is a barren woman and she has her own burden. She says to her husband in chapter 4 verse 9 of 2nd book of Kings, if you want, we can make a small room. If you want, we can make a small room. How is she approaching her husband? Please, let us do this. I have an idea. Can we do this? This is the way husband and wife decides together. Do you understand how this woman is speaking? She is giving great honor to her husband too. Husband too must have a great respect for his wife. Good blending in the couple. respecting each other, loving each other, understanding each other. She is young and her husband is old, and she doesn't want to bring any bad name to him by doing something on her own. Husband should not feel saying, "Why she is bringing a man into my home?" She says, "Please consider this. Let us do this." She is gracious and honorable. But she is also careful not to do anything bringing dishonor to her husband. She says, "He is a holy man of God. There is no hidden agenda here. We will put an upper room." She simply wants to be a blessing to this man of God. This couple is wealthy, but they share their ideas and also resources. He goes to the upper room and lay down quietly there, as we read in chapter 4 verse 11. It was one of his favorite resting places. She perceives him, Elijah, as a holy man of God. She would not have realized that time that, prompted by the Spirit, she would be prompted to receive the word of God. He was allowed to rest there and take food also. He can also pray in his room, read and rest, and he got his own place, and this is her overwhelming kindness, hospitality and generosity. What pains and struggles women go through in their daily life to make others comfortable, nobody can describe. They are people of heart, people of feelings. They are known so much for their caring, daring, and ready for sacrifices. Taken from the rib of a man, they are to be partners in life. The book of Proverbs explains the goodness of a woman in chapter 31. How do you ever repay for all that they have done for us, or they do to you as a wife or as a mother? Let us honor women and understand their God-given beautiful nature. The fifth characteristic: she is a woman of incredible contentment. Think of not only of her honor, hospitality and sacrifice, but she is also a woman of contentment. The man of God was so much taken up by this woman's caring nature, asking his servant Gehazi to ask her what she needs in return for what she is doing. Elisha has capacity to recommend for her even to the king or to the commander of the army. That much influence Elisha had. The servant is not just to sit in a corner. Elisha is respecting the servant. Elisha called her through his servant Gehazi. As we read in 2nd book of Kings chapter 4 verses 12 and 13, call our Shunamite. She is helping me so much, and let me also do something to her. Ask her what I can do for her. But she politely refuses to accept his offer. She says, I live among my people. When everything is wrong, she says, all is well. This woman is gracious. I am comfortable with my people. I am peaceful. I don't need anything. She lives in content. She is not doing anything to others expecting something from them. He is appreciative of all that she is doing for him. Elisha says, I know the king and I have the commander of the army. Just tell me, just say a word and I can put a word to the king. But if we were there, we would have asked many things. She could have easily asked him to. But she says, I am appreciative of your offer, but I have got my people and my family. My basic needs are provided. I am comfortable. Can we learn to say no when we don't need extra things, certain things which are not needed? Not for greediness, not even when you need certain things which are extra. Can we learn to say no? She does it as an act of devotion to God. She is content. She also adapts herself to the situations. She has accepted the fact that she will never get a child. It never becomes a need for her. Hence, she says, all is well. I don't need anything. I am okay. I am fine the way I am. I have accepted my situation. Though she offered something to Elisha, she could say no to what he would offer to her. We live in a society where everyone wants more. We have enough for our need, but not for our greed, as Mahatma Gandhi said. God has given us two hands, one to receive and one to give to others. Today, everyone wants to receive with both the hands. Give me, give me. I want something bigger, better, faster. This is what so many people are driven by in this consumerist culture. But she is content. God delivered his people from bondage, but they started complaining. See the series of complaints in the book of Exodus and in the book of Numbers. Series of complaints. Seeing the Red Sea and Egyptians following them, the Israelites grumbled and cried against God. They grumbled against Moses because water was not good. The whole community of Israel grumbled for no good food. They grumbled for water. The place was called Massa and Meribah, as we read in Exodus chapter 17, 3 and 7. People continuously complained. Again, they complained for not getting meat, fish and garlic and decided to go back to Egypt after whole night mourning. They were never contented. What is the secret of being content? It's not how much money or comforts or bank balance we have. We do not know how to be thankful for what we have. We do have so many things. We have brought nothing. Very beautifully, St. Paul says in his first letter to Timothy, chapter 6, 6-7. We have brought nothing and we are not going to take anything. St. Paul continued to challenge Corinthians, asking in his first letter to them, what do you have that you did not receive? When we read 1 Corinthians chapter 4, 7, it challenges us. What do you have that you did not receive? And if you received it, why do you boast it as if it were not a gift? What is that you have that you did not receive? If you received everything from the Lord, then why do you boast about it? He says how he has learned to be content with whatever he has, and he rejoices too when he suffered insults in 2 Corinthians 12:10. I am content with weaknesses, insults, hardships, persecutions, and calamities for the sake of Christ. And therefore he writes to Philippians from prison, asking them to rejoice. Paul is pleading us with this message from 1 Corinthians 10:10. Do not complain. To be content is divine gift. The sixth characteristic we learn from this first part. She speaks in truthfulness. She was honest. Gehazi, the servant, told Elisha that she has no son and her husband is now old. She never opened herself to him. Again she was called, and now she stood at the entrance itself. As we read in chapter 4:16, Elisha said, at this season, in due time, you shall embrace a son. At this season, in due time, you shall embrace a son. The Lord says to you, next year, this time, whatever you are disappointed with, you will get. But she, instead of singing and praising and thanking the prophet Elisha, she tells him, O man of God, I respect you and I honor you, but please don't deceive your servant. You are God's person, and hence don't tell me lies. She has already perceived and believed him as the man of God. The problem is not with this man. She has respect for him, but she has lost confidence and faith in her life. Somewhere she has lost confidence in her life. Somewhere in her fight with God, she lost faith. She has lost faith in her life. She is not able to believe that God will change the situation. Even if you tell me, I am not going to believe you. God is intervening in everyone's life. Something like Abraham and Sarah, or Zechariah at the old age, or Mary without the help of Joseph. Impossible things happened in the history of salvation. We have to trust God even when the situation seems hopeless. As we read in St. Paul's letter to Romans 4:18, hoping against hope, Abraham believed that he would become the father of many nations. We know that all things will work together for good for those who trust in Him. Romans 8:28. His tender care and compassion changes our situation and our life. Let us not give up the fight. The woman who was suffering from hemorrhage for 12 years touched Jesus' dress and was healed, as we read in Mark 5:27 and 28. But the evangelist Mark also says this: his people have no faith in Jesus. They comment about Jesus saying, we know his parents, carpenter, Mary, an ordinary woman. Those people couldn't see Jesus as Christ, but as an ordinary man. Hence, in his own country, he was not able to do much. Shunammite woman says the same. How could this happen? She has such a great need, and she couldn't tell Elisha, and even when the servant asked her, she couldn't believe him. We also say sometimes like this: I prayed to God many times, but nothing happens positively. God has called you for a purpose, and don't allow anything to block you. As we read in 2nd book of Kings chapter 4:17, she got a son as promised by Elisha the following year. If God wants, He will do it. Everything is possible for Him. A virgin gave birth and a barren woman gave birth in our Bible. A lion will sleep with the cow and the child can play with the cobra. Let's not take these words of Isaiah literally, but it means that impossible things can happen. God is faithful and He will not change His mind. See the life of Joseph in Old Testament, wearing all colorful dress, favored by Jacob, but was sold by his own brothers due to jealousy. He was falsely implicated when he was a slave in Potiphar's house, and he was put in prison. In Genesis 39 we read. But Joseph never questioned God. Let me do the good, and those who do evil, they will face their fate. When Joseph's brothers begged him to forgive their crime, Joseph said, even though you intended to do harm to me, God intended it for good. What a magnanimous reply to his brothers. In Genesis 50:20 we read. Paul says, I have kept up the faith. This is more important. Let us continue the fight until we shed blood. In the book of Daniel we read, fire was increased 7 times when 3 Hebrew boys were thrown in the furnace. But the king saw 4 people, though he put 3 people, as we read in the book of Daniel chapter 3, 17 to 19. There is nothing that God cannot do. Let us keep Christ in front and keep running the race. Don't be afraid of struggles. let's go forward. He has a plan in our life, and that plan is not for evil but for our good. The famous verse in Jeremiah chapter 29 verse 11. He has a plan in our life, and that plan we don't know is not for evil but for our good. In His time, He will make all things beautiful. As Paul writes to Timothy, let me also say that I have fought the good fight. Let me not be disappointed. Like this Shunamite woman, though she honored God's man, she lost her faith. Help us, Lord, to run the race looking at your cross. For what reason you called us, help us to know it and live for it. Help us to live in faith. You said to Peter, Satan got permission to test you, but I prayed for you and you strengthen your brothers in faith. Since you always lives to make intercession for us in our battle with Satan, continue to intercede to God for us. Finally, the Shunammite woman gave birth to a boy, though she couldn't believe the message of Elisha. How happy she would have been. Suppose God gives us good news like this, and everything happens that way, how happy we will be. At that time, what happens in this story? Let's reflect the rest of the story as a continuation of this event from second book of Kings, from 4:18 onwards in the second part. God bless you.